Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, salatu wa salam ala Rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa la. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight we are reciting, I think many of you are distracted. Let's try again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alright. 10 juz, the second half of the 10 juz that we're reciting tonight. We are reciting Surah number 9, Surah At-Tawbah. This is a surah that's very unique in the Quran because this is the only surah in the Quran that does not begin with the Basmalah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. There is much debate of the scholars of why that is the case. Of course, the reason is the Prophet ﷺ did not, sanction that. But also there is a, what they call al-munasaba, like there is a appropriateness to what the topic is talking about. Because the first ayah of this surah basically says that بَرَاءَةٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ إِلَى الَّذِينَ عَاهَدتُّم مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. It's drawing the borders of the Muslim state. It's drawing the borders of the Muslim state, expelling the polytheists from that. So it's such a tough ayah that the basmala that talks about mercy it's almost like they're not compatible. So that's one reasoning provided, but in fact the reasoning, Allahu Alam, is the Prophet ﷺ did not sanction this. This surah speaks about the establishment of the Muslim state towards the very end of the Prophet ﷺ's life. In the very beginning passage or beginning parts of the surah. That's how it must be understood. These ayat are not talking about every single disbeliever, because there are many disbelievers who became believers and we call them Sahaba. Yes or no? This particularly is talking about the, again, this is foreign policy for the Islamic government. For the Prophet ﷺ's government, this is foreign policy. How do you draw your borders? How do you define who is a citizen, who is not? Those things are discussed here. Every government has had this debate and has had this conversation. For us, this conversation takes place by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Surah Bara'ah, Surah Tawbah. Okay? Even in the middle of such strong ayat, even in the middle of that you find something very interesting. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ayah number 6, وَإِنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ اسْتَجَارَكَ فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنًا ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Even when you are in the middle of your foreign policy that's very tough, expelling people of the polytheistic faith from the Muslim government or the Muslim state at that time, even in that case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if there is a polytheist who says that I would like to istajaraka, I would like to stay here for a little bit and like to understand what is this faith. فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ. Give him respite, give him refuge until this person has heard the words of Allah. Meaning, give them the chance to learn about Islam. And ثُمَّ أَبْلِغْهُ مَأْمَنًا. Once they have heard and learned about Islam, then make them reach a point of peace. Ma'mana from amn is a place of peace. Okay? So let them make their decision about what this religion they're choosing in peace. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. That's because there are people who don't know. That's the faith they were born in. So even in the ayat that are talking about these people are to be excluded from the Muslim state and these people are included, even in these ayat, when a person would like to learn about Islam, they are given the opportunity and then given a peaceful situation to make up their mind. Because accepting Islam does not happen under compulsion. Whether you are allowed to stay in the Muslim state or not, that's a different question. But you becoming a Muslim or not, you should make that decision up in a situation of ma'mana, where you are not threatened with your life. That's a very subtle and very beautiful point. It goes against the Orientalist narrative, which is completely garbage, that the Islam was spread by a sword. Have you heard that before? Right? And it's like, how could that be the case? In the most toughest ayat of the Quran that are literally excluding people from living in this country, this newly formed Muslim country, even in that case, the man who wants to become Muslim is told, okay, you go and make up your mind peacefully. And of course, the waqi', the situation, the reality counters the narrative. There is no Muslim army that ever went to East Africa like Somalia or Ethiopia. There's no Muslim army that ever went to Malaysia or Indonesia. And these people are Muslims for centuries, subhanAllah. So this is a very interesting ayah. Also in this ayah, in this passage, in the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the enemies of Islam from outside. Of like Islam, particularly when Islam becomes a political force. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spends a lot of time speaking about them, but also speaks about the political enemies from within. The people who become enemies of Islam from within. And they are who? The hypocrites, the munafiqun. Okay? And these are the people, they're like termites. They eat away and gnaw at the house from the inside until or trying to make it collapse. So in this passage, in this surah, you find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, يُرِيدُونَ أَن يُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ. They want to put out the light of Allah with their mouths. It's a very beautiful image, because if you think of a candle, how do you put out a candle? You blow it, right? Like that. So that's the image. They want to put out Allah's light by blowing at it. But also بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ, because it's all talk. They talk, they talk, they talk. They try to influence people negatively. They try to rally people and create dissent and discord in the community through talking. وَيَأْبَى اللَّهُ إِلَّا يُتِمَّ نُورَهُ. But Allah has refused to let that happen. Allah has refused to let that happen. He is going to make sure that His light is complete. So these are powerful ayat that address enemies from outside, enemies from within. There's a very big battle that took place in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. One of the last battles that took place, that was the Ghazwa of Tabuk. The Battle of Tabuk. Tabuk today from Medina is, I believe, like a 7-hour drive. Sorry, I think like a 10-hour drive. Something like that. Very far, okay? So that's how far the Sahaba had to travel. It took them half a year to get there, roughly. And this battle is in the background of this whole surah. All the conversations are taking place in the middle, or in the backdrop of the conversation is the battle of Tabuk. So for example, we have in ayah number 38, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمُ انْفِرُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ ثَاقَلْتُمْ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. The question is asked of the believers when you're told to go and protect the faith and go out for the sake of the faith and fight for the sake of the faith. Why is it, when you're supposed to go and fight for it, why is it that you cling to the earth? إِثَّاقَلْتُمْ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. You drag your feet and you cling to the earth. Very, very powerful image. All of this is in the background of this battle that was very dangerous and very difficult. Of course, in this battle, what happened is the believers, this was the first ever draft, not the NBA draft, the draft of military draft, where every person who was able-bodied had to go and serve. Okay? This happened in America in which war? Vietnam, right? And who famously refused? Muhammad Ali, rahimahullah, right? So, because it was an unjust war. Okay? Here, this was the first ever military draft and the only one that the Prophet mandated. And in this case, everybody who was able-bodied had to go. What made it difficult was that it was the summer. And the summer in Arabia, is no joke. And what made it difficult was, that was the time of the harvest. The people of Medina were farmers. This was the time they made their money for the rest of the year. So this was a really big sacrifice. To ask them to give up their most pristine opportunity to make money and to travel for half a year in the summer, that is a massive sacrifice. But the Sahaba did it. The Sahaba did it. And the munafiqun, the hypocrites, did not do it. And Allah continues to explore that relationship. He talks about the excuses they make, right? They will come to you, they would say, "Oh Messenger, don't put me in fitna. I have heard that the Roman women are very beautiful." Actually, someone said that to the Prophet ﷺ. A man came to the Prophet and actually said that. "I've heard the Roman women are very beautiful. Don't put me in fitna by taking me there." The Prophet ﷺ knew he was lying or not? Of course he did. But the Prophet ﷺ would just take the people on face value. and He would let him be. So these interesting conversations are all taking place. I'll just leave us with one thing, which is the amazing attitude of the Sahaba. This is towards the end of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and you look how amazingly the Sahaba have been brought up by the Prophet ﷺ and by the Quran. Okay, when it is said to them that this is going to be a difficult battle, you are going to lose a lot. Okay, that's what the hypocrites would say. You want to go out in the summer and lose all of this. What's going to happen to your kids, your wife, this, that, and the other? Look at the response. قُلْ لَن يُصِيبَنَا إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا هُوَ مَوْلَانَا. Ayah number 51. Very beautiful. Nothing touches us except what Allah has written for us. Nothing will come and touch us and afflict us except what Allah has written for us. He is our protector. هُوَ مَوْلَانَا وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. The subtlety here is you have, كَتَبَ لَهُ وَكَتَبَ عَلَيْهِ. Okay, there's like two linguistic subtleties here. كَتَبَ لَهُ is this is something that's good for you. I am writing this is in your advantage. كَتَبَ عَلَيْهِ is this is a burden, a liability, something that's a disadvantage. Okay, كَتَبَ لَهُ is a advantage. عَلَيْهِ is a disadvantage. Okay, the Sahaba are like, whatever happens is what? مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. Whatever happens to us, that's what Allah has written for us. It is always good. Whether we live, whether we die, whether we are sacrificing our lives now, whether we live out our lives and do whatever it is that Allah has destined us to do, whatever happens to us, it is good because Allah is our master. That, brothers and sisters, that is what true Iman looks like. That acceptance of Allah's decree to that level that we say, it doesn't matter what happens, we know something good is coming out of this. إِلَّا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَنَا. That was their attitude, and that's why, subhanAllah, they managed to go and do what they did. The Battle of Tabuk it's continuing tomorrow as well, so I'll summarize one other part from the Battle of Tabuk where some Sahaba made a small mistake. And it was a very, very devastating situation. We'll talk about the next, tomorrow, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.